Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast, the Spread the Love podcast. My name is Julieta Silva and we're with our three hosts.
My name is Paris and I'm the president of Spread the Love.
Hi, I'm Zana and I'm the co-president.
And we are the leaders of the youth-led organization called Spread the Love, where we create encouraging letters, notes, and videos for children with special needs to watch and to read and enjoy. And we will interview Rome, a parent who received some letters from our team. So, Rome, can you first please tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yeah, so for one, thank you for having me. Family and I, so we're from Seattle, Washington. My wife and I just had our first daughter, or our first child, little Cali. So as we're trying to, navigate the first time parent thing, there's an extra layer of her having the Pfeiffer syndrome and us just getting used to this new normal. On one end, it's a pandemic, can't really go anywhere, can't really see anyone. And even, after Cali was born, there were, so my wife and I both weren't able to go and see her all at once while she was still in the hospital. We had to take turns. So again, we've just been over here adjusting to life, making it work, but also just watching our little girl just continue to grow and flourish and just come into her own and develop her personality. So it's been great.
Awesome. So our first question for you is to describe Cali's diagnosis and how it has affected your family dynamic.
Yeah, so to take you all the way back to when we first found out. So we actually didn't find out about her diagnosis until she was born. However, at like week 37, almost week 38, the doctor shared with us that there may be some complications. And the scary part about all of it is they just kind of vaguely said, there's some complications. We don't know exactly what's going on. We're not going to be able to tell until she's born. And so I can say, like, even right there before she even was born, things started to change for us and our family, because at this time, we just, we didn't know what we didn't know, and there wasn't enough information to give us. And so we had an unfortunate situation with the doctor's appointment where not only did we not leave with any answers, but they made us think that it was something completely different going on. And both my wife and I are, individuals of faith. And so we prayed a lot. We actually, one of the nights, it was this weird kind of like energy transfer that I've never, ever experienced before. But not to get like, too religious or anything like that, but we prayed pretty long over her. And there was, an energy transfer to where Cali has been kicking through my wife's entire pregnancy, like a lot. And so, kind of the fact that she had been kicking, it automatically ruled out one of the things that the doctor said that, one of the conditions she may have. And so Cali just started going crazy, kicking, hitting, like it just absolutely going crazy. And so to us, it was kind of like, there was something powerful going on. And at that point, we were kind of like, let's just wait and see, because there was another maybe 8 days before she was scheduled to be born, or my wife would reach full term, and we were, planning on bringing her out. And so as we were getting ready for that process, we met with a genetics counselor, and the genetics counselor was the one that kind of said, based on what we are seeing, we think it's a form of craniosynostosis, but they didn't know which one, because there's a few. There's Pfeiffer syndrome, there's Cruzon syndrome, there's Apert syndrome, and they all kind of have their specific things, the specific traits to where you can kind of differentiate between all of them. And so all we knew, and the other like kind of like scary part of the story, all we knew is on the week that she was going to be born, we also met with an operating room doctor, because there was a chance that due to her syndrome, they thought her lungs were small. They weren't. Her chest cavity was just small. But there was concern that she would be breathing. There was concern that she wouldn't be breathing when she came out. And so in the event, that they would have to perform CPR, do all the resuscitation stuff. And we had to have the tough conversation of, how far should they take it? Essentially, like, if she comes out and she's not breathing, Do you want us to, try and help, exhaust everything to try and help, or, decide to, the other alternative that I don't want to put out there? We were save her, do whatever you got to do, save her. So she comes out, and I cut the umbilical cord, and, again, we had been prepped ahead of time that she may not breathe. And that same doctor said that she would cry, like if she starts crying when she comes out, that's a great sign. So she cries for like a second. So I hear my baby's cry, and then she stops, and then she's not breathing. So I like really run over, cut the umbilical cord. They take her into this other room, and they start trying to get the breathing tubes down her nose. And that was probably the most stressful 15 minutes of my life, just pacing in that hot room. As there was literally like probably like 6 doctors trying to figure out, because her Pfeiffer syndrome. So some of like the characteristics is, so the plates in the skull on a kid that doesn't have Pfeiffer syndrome, they're all apart. So there's 7 plates, they're all apart, which is why babies have soft spots on their head and in their skull. So Callie's was already fused together. And so again, the reason why this is a problem is because there's pressure built up inside the head, behind the eyes, and it could cause brain damage if there's too much pressure to where the brain has nowhere to go. So again, like really serious stuff. But one of the other things is the small nasal airways, small jaw. She can't breathe out of her mouth. So that's instantly why they were kind of acting with a little more urgency. And really the long answer to your question, it has literally been stressful since like a week before she came in, and now that she's here, and now that we have a diagnosis. She lived in Seattle Children's Hospital for the first 5.5 months of her life. And that 5-month period, she probably had like 8 surgeries. And even in her first 13 months of life, she's had 12 total. And the surgeries, consist of, she's had 2 skull surgeries. One, because again, since her skull's already together, they had to remove pieces on both sides of the skull, so her brain or her head had room to grow. So they did it on the sides, and they did it on the back. And they gave her so much, extra space for her brain to grow. And then another thing, they had to install a VP shunt in the back of her head because she had an increased amount of brain fluid that wasn't draining. So they got that fixed. And then even like before all of that, the tracheostomy surgery. And so because once they were able to get the breathing tube in, they had to, my poor baby, like, so they had to change the tape every single day, and she hated it. And basically they taped it down, and then she's intubated, so it's all the way down her throat. And so because, again, she can't swallow well, like all of like the moisture and like spit and everything like went all over the tape. They had to change it. And so finally they're like, we just need to do a tracheostomy surgery. So they did it, and she had a little bit of a reaction to the surgery. And it was like her first major one. So this probably maybe like weeks into her being born, another kind of like stress cycle, then the skull surgeries. And then, other kind of like minor things throughout the way. But it's just one thing that I kind of noticed and I'm accepting is that we just need to be flexible. And of course, like we can plan out things like in terms of when we want to do things and whatnot, but really we just need to let Cali lead us. So yeah, we just been going through a lot.
All right, so for our second question, it's about, have you and your family gone through any challenges socially, like you've run into someone and it's a little offensive to you, or any situations like that? Because with our organization, we want to spread awareness so people, you don't get anything offensive and such. So
yeah, so for one, that's why I love your organization, because I love that message, and I love being able to spread that, because the thing that comes up the most, and because quarantine, we haven't been too many places with her around people, but I do remember our first time kind of back into the hospital for like an all-day appointment and it was outpatient. So, we were out in the regular waiting rooms and everything, and just like people staring. And, she's on a ventilator at this point. And so, in addition to her ventilator, she has this little suction machine that we have to suction mucus out of her trach. It's just like us when we clear our throat, but she's unable to do it. So we have to do it for her. And so people are just like staring, and I'm instantly, again, I kind of pride myself in trying to prep for whatever may come up, so there's no surprise. And so, in my head, I'm just like, it's gonna happen. We know it's gonna happen. And I always thought about like, how would I deal with it? Because there's been a lot of maturation just in me, because I would have been the one to say something like, what are you looking at? And that's, not the best way to handle it. And in this case, I'm just like, it's almost like the moment got so frustrating for me that like, I didn't even know what to do or how to handle it. So that was one situation where we were just sitting in the waiting room and everyone was like looking. And the crazy part is, so she was sitting in her stroller and all her gear is in her stroller. And like she has to have 20 hours of nursing. So like whenever we go anywhere, there needs to be two people. Unless it's the nurse can go by themselves with her, like for a walk and stuff. But long story short, like all the seats were taken and I wasn't like, I didn't need to sit down, but like one person after like 30 minutes of staring at us just got up so we can sit down. And I'm just kind of like, thanks. But like, you're still staring. Like this doesn't make you staring okay just because you're trying to give us your seat. Another time, because I do want to say how we are with Cali is we look at it like, if there's something that other parents do with their kids, like we want to try to do too, because like we want Cali to feel as much like any other kid as possible. And so we go to the park, there's this lake out here. And so we were able to bring Cali in the lake, and like I had the ventilator on my back and we had this little kind of like little floaty thing that Cali was sitting in, and it's one that like she just puts her legs through, and the fact that it floats and she can just kick through the water, she absolutely loved it. But when we came out, this little boy like stops in front of our tent, and it's just like looking, like he didn't say anything for 5 minutes. He just stopped and was looking, and it was like, you can't really say anything to a little kid like that. But in those moments, I've always been like, like I want to say something to the parents, but anything I would say to the parents is going to come off super aggressive. So again, I chill.
The thing is that kids, like you could say that kids have no filter. So it's like a bit difficult when like treating them. You get me, right?
No, for sure.
Yes.
And our nurse said something actually really interesting, because she had the nurse that was with us that day, she came from a family with a Pfeiffer kid as well that's older. And so like, she's well versed in Pfeiffer kids. And so she, at times she was just like, yeah, like when we go places and someone's like staring, she'd be like, hey, you can say hi. Like it's cool. Like it's okay to say hi. Like she's not gonna like do anything to you or anything like that. But like, I don't know if this is like the, so we got this shirt. I can't remember the brand, but don't stare, I say hello. Oh, there we go. Don't stare, I say hello.
I was gonna ask about your shirt too, because I was trying to read.
My wife, somebody sent it to my wife, but basically, again, like I'm super passionate about like this and how, just again, like similarly, like you guys said, driving awareness to this. And so I'm trying to be more conscious on educating people instead of getting an attitude, because I think that's probably the best route to do. The last thing that I'll say about this, and what I see more, is social media isn't like, it's a vehicle, but it can be an evil. I mean, everybody knows that. It's really just how you use it. And so when my wife and I sat down and we decided that we were going to tell our story on social media, we were going to show her off on our social medias, just like we would if she didn't have Pfeiffer syndrome. It attracts, I don't want to say a lot of hate, but there's some hate, and there's some, there's a lot of ignorance out there. There's a lot of triggering things out there. An example of a triggering thing is someone will DM me and say, "What's wrong with the baby?" And this right there, well, for one, like every time they ask me that, I say, "There's nothing wrong with the baby. There's not." But then I follow up and say, "She has a rare genetic syndrome that she was born with." And that's it. Like, and so I tried to, create content around that very subject. And I've been reaching a lot more of like the special needs parents now. And again, like what I'm trying to be the voice for all those people who reach out to me and wish they could say things, but they can't. And so like, again, I'm trying to walk that fine line of education, but also being like, no, we don't play this as a special need parent. Watch how you come at us type thing. At the nicest way possible, but that those are our kids. And like, if you disrespect our kids, you got to do it with us. So, and we're not going to sit there, like, I'm not going to sit there and let them disrespect anybody else's kids either. So that's kind of where my wife and I are standing. And so it's just, we've had to really, really toughen up our skin. My wife straight up, like, she turned some of her comments off. So like, good for her. But I'm one, like, I want to read everything. And so I read it, I internalize it. TikTok is by far the worst. TikTok, like, I had on many occasions where I was at my breaking point ready to cuss these kids out, and then I had to remember their kids, so I just let it go. But yeah, like, I don't stand for that. And some of that, yeah, is stemming from parents down, which is why I'm trying to reach the parents to be like, yo, this is not okay. Because I always think about the day that when she starts going to school and something happens at school, and then I have to go to the school. They're just need to hope that my wife is the one who gets there first, because all those years of tucking in that attitude, when I get to school, is it's coming, and the principal gonna do something. The principal will hear me. So yeah, that's basically what's been happening with that journey.
Something that you could say is like that, like the fact that like people are like hiding behind a screen and like not really doing it in front of like the person that like they're commenting about is like encouraging for them. You could say it's just, I don't know, hopefully Twitter culture, you could say, and like all of that, and just social media culture right now is just like very toxic as well. So it's like first of all, props to you for like being like stuck in it, and you could say, and just like with the patience,
Thank you.
But yeah, and so the other question, that a lighter question could be like, what was, I know that Kayla is like super like young, barely born, right? But you could say, what was your reaction to opening the letters that our team sent?
So for one, like I really try not to get emotional on stuff, and like, there are some things that just completely pull on my heartstrings so much. And like reading some of those letters, because the one thing that like I didn't tell you guys, and I don't know if you guys saw like through on our social, she actually had to have an emergency surgery the day after Christmas. And so she was really, really sick. And like when we were going through that, and we actually we had one of our nurses was having a COVID exposure, and so my wife and I were doing a lot of the primary, everyday duties basically. So we were doing all her care. So it was a tiring time. It was a tough time. And then when those letters started coming in, like reading all of them, and like some of them are just like, I don't know, like I just felt like the pure, like genuine, like joy and support in them. And like, something, again, people literally DM me every single day about different things, and some things don't impact me as much as others, but it's just like wow, like they took time and put in specific details. Like one of the letters was like, hey Callie, I heard you like watching sports with your dad or something like that. Like, what's your favorite sport? I think it was like theirs was like baseball or something like that, or I can't remember. But it's just like those little small details like that I was reading. I was just like I can't right now. I can't. This is hard. But yeah, like my wife and I both, we really appreciated it. And it was like one of those things like it's literally like that love. Like it's one gesture. You know what I mean? And it's like these kids weren't expecting anything back. Like they just wanted to do something nice. And I feel like we all get caught up in, we live our own lives and we just do what we have to do and what's in front of us, and not necessarily thinking about like what one little nice compliment to a stranger could do. And so that's kind of where, to me, like it was so heartfelt and so amazing.
Right. So our next question for you is, people were always curious about others. So to non-special needs parents who are curious or have questions, how is one way that they could like ask without coming off as rude or disrespectful to you? Because they can want to ask and then it's offensive. Yeah. So how can they ask and not be like rude?
I love this question because I've been getting it a lot lately, and my answers changed every single time. So let me just say that like delivery is important, because when it comes down to it, and this is I'm gonna speak objectively really quick before I go to like what I think. So when it comes down to it, like there's really no easy way to say like what's the baby's condition or what's the baby going through. There's no real like easy comfortable way to say that. But what I've been telling people is that never say what's wrong with the baby. Never just direct and point that there is something wrong. You leave it open-ended so the parent will feel comfortable about telling you. So like, for example, I told someone, I said, say, even though I have thoughts about this too, because I say exactly what she has everywhere. You could see it on my page. But I say, hey, try something like, I want to know a little bit more about the baby's condition. What is the name of it so I can go educate? Essentially. So it's kind of like showing that they're going to be proactive. They're going to go look it up. They're going to educate themselves, and not kind of, I feel like it's just rude when you're just like, oh, what's wrong? Or tell me what's going on with the baby. Or, they'll straight up ask something. They're like, does her eyes hurt? And, like those are okay, because then you can kind of like address that as like a one-off question. But, if you really want somebody to learn or to understand, what the best way to ask, like just do it delicately. Like it's really like if someone, this is really extreme, but it's like if someone didn't have an arm, they wouldn't want you to go up to them and say, hey, where's your arm? Like that's so inconsiderate and disrespectful and insensitive. And so it's like, just think about how you would want somebody to ask you about what you're going through, delicate.
Right. Yeah. That's good advice, because I think at this time we definitely need some advice like that. But I think this will be our last question unless we have some more time. But since you were still in the time of COVID, have there been any precautions that you've been taking, because of just how everything's come out, and the multiple surgeries and like family members coming over and stuff like that? So
yeah, so we really quick, let me preface by saying too, so we've been super conservative. I've been super conservative just with everything we do. But I also, so I have a liver autoimmune disease and a colon autoimmune disease. So I also don't have like an immune system. I'm also really vulnerable. And so like we even, whenever, you know, we're somewhere with people, when we get home, shower, change clothes, we won't even go in her room or touch her until we're out of our clothes and stuff. And so that's basically, you know, I want to keep us protected at all costs. And then in terms of a visiting standpoint, like my mom has been here, my stepdad has been here, both masked up. My sister's been here, masked up. No one else. Like everyone else did. Actually, shortly after she got home, the rest of my extended family came over, like my mom's siblings and my grandparents came over and met her. But we were outside and then in front of the house. And so like, you know, they kept their distance. So we purposely are not having lots of people in the house. And, you know, we have sanitizer everywhere. We have Clorox wipes everywhere. We got like all the cleaning stuff, you know, because with her being on a ventilator and having a trach, like she is super, super vulnerable. And so I tell everybody, I'm just like, I'm not willing to take the chance, you know, at all, even because we're going to be getting vaccinated next week, or we get our first vaccinations next week, my wife and I. And I know we had to fight for that.
I'm really, really excited for you. Really, really
thank you. But we're getting that next week, and I don't think it's still going to change, like, because even though we'll be protected, she won't, because she can't get the vaccine. And so, yeah, everything that we do, we're still going to be super careful. Like, it's even to the standpoint of when the world opens back up and everyone goes back to work in an office, I don't even know like what I'm going to do in that regard, because, you know, I was always one of those that someone would like sneeze or cough on me and I was sick like 2 days later. And so going back to work, I'm gonna have so much anxiety to be around all those people, and from the fact that it could be brought home to her, I don't know if I can take that risk. So yeah, I've been conservative. I think I'll continue to be conservative. We'll continue to wear masks. You know, we're gonna be going on our first trip in May, first plane ride. So I am extremely anxious about that.
It's exciting.
Yeah, so I just hope that we're able to, you know, stay so insulated and protected that everything will be good. So
So we just have one last question for you so we can close off. So what are your message to other parents who have a child with Pfeiffer syndrome like Cali?
Yeah, so Pfeiffer syndrome specifically, I would say hang in there. And I know that's really vague, and I know a lot of people probably say that, but I just want to let you know, like, when we were going through it and we were just so scared and we didn't have answers, I took to Facebook, I took to the hashtag on Instagram, and I found other families who had the same exact version of Pfeiffer syndrome as Cali, but their children were a little bit older, and that was my saving grace. I want to shout out Amanda if she ever sees this. Amanda really, every single question I had, she answered, and she was the first one to be like, hey, like, it's gonna be okay. I lived through this. This is exactly what's gonna happen. You know, with me being a planner and trying to not be surprised on things, like, it was good to have that context and good to have, you know, someone, you know, that I could always call on. And so I would say, hang in there, find your support community, reach out to me, reach out to my wife. We will make ourselves here for you. Because quite frankly, in the Pfeiffer community, we are all connected. We're all family. And to be honest, I consider even like the disability and accessibility community, like we are all family. Right. So I just want them to know that they have our support. There are others out there that are more than willing to support. You just got to find them. So
right, yeah, I agree. So Rome, I remember you said earlier you were very faithful during the whole process, and I know prayer, it works for those who are religious, yeah, because I had a cousin who was severely sick, and you know, my grandma's church, everyone was praying for her, and now she's running and she's okay. So to any parent out there whose faith might be low, do you have any advice to them?
Yeah. I mean, I'll put it to you like this: you are gonna question things. You are gonna question why you're in this situation, but you have to look at it from the standpoint of you were in this situation because God is giving you this gift because you have the tools to manage it and you have the tools to basically. I lost my train of thought. I didn't want to say like the wrong thing. You basically have the tools to foster whatever this blessing needs, is basically where I'm getting at. And so I would say, yes, it's hard. And yes, you will test your faith and you will question it, but you have to know that if you stay faithful, he will walk with you just like he walked with us. Because I do want to say that there have been so many times to where I've seen God show up with Cali specifically. He is there with her for every one of those 13 surgeries. He was there with her those nights in the hospital that my wife and I couldn't be there. He's there with her every night now when we go to sleep. And so, I just don't lose faith. It's gonna be hard, and I want them to know it's gonna be hard, but he'll make a way.
Okay.
I'm very, very happy that you were able to be here with us and just up to finishing things. You have 3 minutes to just shout out your social media profiles and just where they can find you.
So first off, I'm gonna shout out my wife's because gentleman stuff. You can follow my wife on Instagram, Felicia11, FALESHA11 on Instagram. And then I'm Rome Johns on Instagram, so at ROMEJOHNS. I'm also on Twitter pretty heavily, and my Twitter handle is ROMEJOHNSO because my name is common and people like to take my name and take my handles. And then we are both on YouTube. So Felicia, I can't remember what Felicia's YouTube thing is, but just search Pfeiffer syndrome on YouTube and you'll find Felicia. She's up there. But my wife does really well with all the educational stuff. I'm starting with the educational stuff, but we really just document our lives and what it's like and pretty much Cali's journey and her milestones that she goes through, weekly and monthly. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time here with us. And we just really, really appreciate your presence, and just hearing your story. So thank you so much for that. And to our listeners, please remember to follow our Instagram at Spread the Love, appear between the R and the E. So yes, we are very thankful for you and like I said, your presence, and we just overall wish you and Cali and your family just a very, very good year, start of 2021, and just a very good life for Cali. So thank you so, so much. And with that, we're ending the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it's been such a pleasure.